Welcome to part 14 of the Advanced Revit course. In this lesson, we'll be stylizing the graphics of our drawings in order to create a nice looking architectural set. If you'd like to get access to all of the course files, materials, and resources, as well as 20 hours of ad-free content, you can feel free to check out the full course on my website. I'll see you there. So we haven't really done anything so far to make these floor plans and elevations and all of these other views. We've done nothing to make them look good. All we've done so far really is just chuck them onto a sheet and then added some annotations to them. So now I want to spend a little bit of time to focus on presentation side of things, the stylistic side of things inside of Revit. The first thing we're going to do is have a look at this ground floor plan. We're going to open up this viewport. And the first thing you're going to see is that we don't currently have a view template set up. Now we'll definitely want to apply a view template to this ground floor plan so that we can apply it to the level 1 floor plan and the level 2 floor plan as well, but we don't have to do that just yet. What we can actually do is make all the changes that we need to inside of this one ground floor plan, and then we can create a view template from that current view, which we can then apply to the other views. So we're going to do that once we make all our changes. If I open up this viewport, the first thing we're going to see is that there's this weird concrete hatch coming through at the moment, and there's some other floors showing through, and it's all looking a little bit weird. This bottom bit, it's not too bad at the moment. It's pretty plain, which is good, but I don't know what's going on here. Now, the reason why it's showing like that is because it's showing us that floor, which is this carpet floor, which actually has a concrete structure to it. It's got a 200mm thick slab with apparently 120mm thick carpet, which is just something that we arbitrarily put in the beginner course. But we're going to just keep that as it is, but you're going to notice that, we've got this big concrete pad here, which is now being sliced through. Now, the reason why it's showing as concrete is because the cut pattern for this floor, or for this material, the concrete cast in situ, is a concrete hatch. In our assembly for this floor, what we can do is click on where we've got the material for concrete and click on this the three little dots in that bottom corner. Here you're going to see under graphics, you've got different surface patterns and cut patterns that you can edit. You're going to see that the cut pattern is this concrete. So that's confirming to us that this view is in fact being sliced through this floor because it's showing that cut pattern. If we go to a 3D view, I'll show you what I mean by that. So where this cut plane is happening is across through this floor here, and it's showing everything underneath that, which is why we get to see everything on this ground floor, but then this floor above isn't showing anything, it's just showing that carpet floor or that concrete hatch. If we go back to our ground floor plan, we're just going to confirm that in our view range. If I go to the extents in the properties panel and I click on view range, you're going to see that the cut plane is currently happening 1200mm above that ground floor plan. Now, if we were to make this, say, 1000mm instead of 1200, you're going to see that it doesn't cut through that concrete floor anymore. We can also change this cut plane to be higher if we wanted to show what's above it. And there you can see that's got all of that level 1 stuff as well. And by doing so, what I'm starting to think is that we don't actually need a ground floor plan and a level 1 floor plan because they are essentially the same floor. It's just there's a small stair set that's taking it up to that level. If we look in our 3D view, you can see that level 1 is 1400mm above that ground floor. So it's not exactly a whole level above. It's almost just like a half level above. If you think that most ceiling heights are 2800mm tall or around about that number, if we're halving that, that's 1400, it's going to be cutting, halfway through that room. If we look at the level 1 floor plan, all this is going to be showing us is that exact same information, but then minus what's below there. So I'm thinking we can probably delete this level 1 floor plan, and then we're going to add that information to the ground floor plan. Now, the cool thing about changing that view range is that it's updated all of these rooms for us automatically. So you can see that it's automatically generated colors for those rooms for our color fill schedule or legend. And you can see that all of the rooms are still being shown on this plan as well. So what we can actually do is come over to our architecture tab, and we can actually tag these rooms with a room tag. We're going to use that same room tag as we had before, and we're just going to place in our tags for these rooms. And you're going to see that they're going to be automatically labeled to what we named them before. In fact, Another way of doing this, if I just undo those room names, what we could actually do is go to our level 1 floor plan and just copy these tags across. So I'm just going to select all of our room tags. Another way to do that is by selecting everything here and then filtering it to select only the room tags. You can see there's 8 room tags selected now. I'm just going to click the copy to clipboard or press Ctrl C to copy that. We're going to go back to our ground floor plan. And now if we want to copy this to the exact same place on this plan, we have to go down to paste. And look at this drop down spot here. And we're going to paste it aligned to the current view. There you're going to see that places all of them. Now I'm just going to close this level 1 floor plan because we're not going to need that anymore. And I want to start making this look, even better. We will keep the level 2 floor plan because that is this space up above the ground level. So that actually is, I guess, a whole level above. And you can see that here. So the first thing I'm going to do just to neaten this up is get rid of or move some of these sections. A lot of these sections that we did create were just used for working through our model. We don't actually need them. If we have a look at section 1, it's nothing. So what I'm going to do is delete that section 1. Section 2, what you're going to see is that actually is a pretty good section that we can keep. Section 3 as well looks like we can keep that. Section 4 though, we don't need that. So I'm going to delete section 4. Section 5, this is just a internal elevation really, so I don't think we need that. And then section 6, we can possibly delete this as well. So that leaves us with section 2 and 3. And already you're going to see that those section markers that we deleted are now gone as well. But for section 2 and 3, we can't actually see those section markers and where they're actually cutting through on the floor plan. Now, the reason for this is because the sections are phased differently to this floor plan. This floor plan is phased as existing, and although it's showing all, it's not going to show any new construction. If we come over to our section that we've got here, section 2, you're going to see that this is phased for new construction. And so it's not going to show up inside of that floor plan. But what I'm going to do is just change this to be an existing phase, and you're going to see that it changes what this looks like. I'm going to do the same thing for our other section as well, change that to existing. If we come back to our ground floor plan, we can now see where those section cuts are actually being made from. Now this looks pretty bad having these just come across our floor plan. So what we can do is move these out. I'm just going to move this in line with the grid markers. That's always a good thing to do. I'm going to line this up in line with the grid markers as well. And then I'm going to click this little break line here in the middle of that section marker, just to break it. And then we can drag this back and have it just off the view so it's not in the way of anything, but we can still see where that section is being cut. I'm going to do the same thing for this section as well. I'm going to break that and bring it back, and then I'm going to break this one as well, bring that back to there. Alright, so that's cleaned up the sections a bit. We might have to move this out a bit. So considering we haven't really defined what these brick walls actually are, and we haven't gone out on the site and measured that they are in fact a 50mm cavity with a 110mm bricks or whatever it may be, we don't really want to show the exact configuration of that wall. So instead, what I'm going to actually do is change all of these walls in this view to have a black cut fill. And to do that, I'm just going to hit VV to bring up the visibility and graphics settings. I'm going to go over to walls by pressing WA, and you're going to see that they have a transparency on them. And that would have been while we were working out where these walls are, and that was in the beginner course, but I want to turn off that transparency, and you'll see that that already makes it look a lot neater because they were being cut through. You can see what I mean by that. They're no longer showing up weirdly where we can then see the floor hatch properly as well. So I'm just going to bring that up one more time and press WA. I'm also going to turn off the transparency for the floors. That was something we previously did, and apply that. It shouldn't make much of a difference. Now in here, what I'm going to do is come over to where we've got cut patterns. I want all of the cut patterns to be in a dark gray fill. So I'm just going to select that override button. Now I'm going to change the pattern to be a solid fill. I'm going to change that color to be a dark gray. In fact, I might choose maybe something like that. Now I'm going to hit OK and apply that. You'll see that all of those walls now go to a dark gray color, which is awesome. What we don't want to see is that structure of those walls though. We've got those lines that are cutting through those walls. So the reason why this is showing is because of the detail level of the floor plan. You can see that it's currently set for fine, and the finer these details are, then the more detail that's going to be shown in the floor plan. The more coarse it is, then the less of this detail that you're going to see. So you'll see if I put that to coarse, those lines are going to disappear because we don't need to see those lines. So that's a great method of getting all your walls to be that same color, because in a sketch plan or something like that, you don't need to see the actual structure unless you're documenting that drawing. I'm just going to grab these elevation markers and just move them out so that nothing's overlapping. This grid line, what you can actually do is press this add elbow button, and we can add an elbow to it so that it's not going over that section marker. And we can do the same thing over here as well. We're going to add an elbow to it just so it's not overlapping. These elevation markers I'm going to move in line with that. Now when you're moving these elevation markers, you want to be careful not to select, as I just did with that other one, not to select both the elevation marker and the actual elevation cut line, which is going to be this pointy bit of the elevation. You can see if we move that cut line, let's say we move all of this back here, that cut line is going to move. But all we want to do is change where that marker is. So I'm going to undo that. I'm just going to move the marker in line with that. And now that cut line doesn't move. So again, I'm just going to select that marker and move it in line with the grid lines and do the same up the top as well. Now, generally, you don't really even need to see these elevation markers if you've just got a north, east, south, and west elevation, but it's still kind of good to show in some cases because it does reference what drawing and what sheet it is on. Next up, we want to add some of these different hatches to the floors, because we know that in the master bedroom, this is all going to be carpet in here. Through this hallway, you're going to have, I think it was timber, and then in the bedrooms, there'll be carpet as well. All right, so the first thing we want to do is add a carpet hatch to the carpet in the bedrooms, as well as maybe that study there. I'm just going to change the name of that to study. So that's going to be these 3 bedrooms and also the master bedroom and the walk-in robe. So let's go ahead and change that material. So I'm just going to highlight that floor there just so we can bring it up. I'm going to use the filter tool, check none, and bring up floors. So it's just going to select that one floor there. And you can see that's brought up the floor carpet. Going to edit that type and edit the structure of that. And now we're going to edit the carpet material. And I'm going to check these 3 dots here. So now I'm going to change the surface pattern for that carpet under graphics. And you'll see it's got the foreground surface pattern, and that's what we want to change. So I'm going to hit where it says none over pattern. I'm just going to look for something that looks like carpet. Now I'm looking for something that's kind of sandy. I'm thinking even the gypsum plaster hatch could work, or perhaps something a little bit more sandy like this. Let's give that a shot. The sand dense. We'll apply that, and you can see that looks maybe just a little bit too dense. So I'm going to use the other sand hatch. So that looks good. What I might want to do is change the color of that hatch to be something a bit lighter, or I can leave that how it is for now, and we can change that in the visibility graphics settings, which I'll show you in a moment. Just going to hit OK on that and hit OK and hit OK. Let's have a look at how that looks. Not bad at all. It looks carpety, but you can also see that that carpet is running through the hallway and the study. So rather than creating a new slab for this floor, what I'm going to do is use the split surface tool. And if that's under the modify tab, if you come over to where it says geometry, that's this button here. So what I want to do is select this carpet face. And now I can start drawing in a split face for this. And we touched on this in the last course, so I won't go too in depth with it. But I'm just going to draw an outline where this carpet would not be. So I'm just going to draw this up to that wall there and then back to there. I'm also going to have to do the same thing on this side. So I'm just going to follow that line there and follow this line around the wall. And I can actually probably delete this line because that's on the boundary line anyways. So if I accept this, we're going to see that we now have a split face region of just that hallway. So I can now use the PT tool or paint tool by coming up to the top here and pressing paint in the modify tab. And I want this to be a material that has horizontal lines or vertical lines that are going down to represent wooden slats. You can see that in the study, it's got carpet there, and then there are also carpet in the bedrooms. I'm going to assume that, although I can't see it, that there's going to be floorboards that go across the hallway. So I'm going to try find a timber material that we can apply to this. And I might just use this wood timber. You're going to see that material be applied just to that part of that slab, which is good. but it doesn't have a hatch on it. So I'm going to have to edit this material by going to the Manage tab and clicking on Materials. And now I'm just going to look for that wood timber. And it should pop up here. You can see that it's got a diagonal cross cut pattern, but it's got no foreground surface pattern. So I'm going to click on this pattern here, and we can use a model fill pattern. We're going to find something that is vertical. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom, and here you can see we've got a 75mm vertical hatch pattern. If we apply that, you can see that that now looks like it's got floorboards, except they might be a little bit too close to each other. So what I'm going to do is instead duplicate this fill pattern with this button here. I'm going to make this a 150mm vertical. And under line spacing, I can just change this to 150, and that should double the distance. So I'm going to click OK and apply that. And there we have it. We've got that timber slat in there as well. Now you're going to see that these hatches are very bold and kind of sticking out at you, which you don't really want. You want them to be subtle, a bit like this carpet. So what I'm going to do is use the visibility and graphics settings by pressing VV. And I'm going to go down to where we've got floors. Now for where it says projection/surface, we're going to look at the surface patterns. So we can come down here and override that surface pattern for the floors. Now all we're going to do is just change the color so that all of the floor hatches are going to be the same color. And we're going to make it just a light gray, something in the middle about there. When I hit OK and apply this, you'll see it changes the surface patterns, the color of all of those hatches. So now we've got a consistency, whereas you saw that the carpet was a different color before. Now they're all exactly the same, which is good. So if we hit OK, you can already see that that makes this a lot more legible, a lot more readable. These room tags are now actually being able to be read rather than them having a floor hatch over the top of them. So already that looks so much better than it did before. What we can do now is do the same thing for the level 2 floor plan. But what we're going to do, rather than redoing all of those same steps that we just did, is we're going to make a view template from this ground floor. Sorry, this one here. So I'm going to go over to the View tab, and under View Templates, you're going to see that you can create a template from the current view. Now this is currently grayed out because we're on a sheet and not a view. So if I just double click on the viewport and now try it, we can now create a template from that current view. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to call the template floor plan. And if you remember what I said before, it's sometimes good to put your name before it so that you know that this is a template that you've created. So now we've just created a template from that view. If we click OK there and we head over to our level 2 floor plan, we can instantly add all of those changes that we just did to this floor plan as well by going to the view template and then assigning that view template that we just created. There we go. Now what you're going to see is some weird hatches coming through on and through some of these walls. Now that's because we put an underlay on this before. So if we change the range base layer to none, that means all of that stuff below is going to be hidden because we don't need to see that. But what we can also do is add this level above to the ground floor plan. So for example, if we wanted to show a dashed line of the balcony above, as you can see in level 2, there's this balcony here. If we want to show that on the ground floor plan, we can add a range base level to be the level above, level 2. Now, if we apply that, you'll see it gives us an outline of what is above. And I'm going to make this look up so that we don't see some of this other stuff as well. So sometimes you might just have to have a play around with these settings to get that right. So we can also go to the level 2 floor plan and show you where the roof is around this level. If we go to the range base level and make this, let's say the ground floor roof, or maybe level 1, and then change it to unbounded, and we're going to see everything then above level 1. So we're also going to see that balcony below and the roof around it. You're also going to see where that roof is pitching from. So that's that ridge point there, and then also where it comes in here. What Revit says with this is that when you use a level as an underlay in the current view and use the linework tool on the edges of the elements from that level, the elements become part of that view and you can modify them. So what you can do, as you see here, is make these lines a dashed line instead of it being just an underlay. So let's go ahead and do that because it will look a lot better as well. So in the Modified tab under the View panel, you'll see this line work tool, or LW. So this overrides the line style for a selected line in the active view only. It says a different line style can be used to emphasize certain elements in a drawing. So that's kind of using what we wanted to do here. So what we can actually do is change the line work or the line style of this underlay and make it into something like a dashed or overhead line. So let's use that tool, and you can see that the overhead line style pops up straight away, which is good. That's what we want. And what you can do then is just select the lines that you want to show up. So I'm going to select just the boundaries of this roof as well as that ridge line there, and it's going to change that line style for us. So just like that, we can show the ridge and we can show the outside of the roof. Now what I'm going to do is then turn off this underlay, and you'll see that those lines stay where they are. But the interesting thing is that these aren't detail lines. These are still the lines from the actual model elements. So you can see if we hover over it, it's showing the gutter. And if we hover over here, it will show the basic roof. But we've changed the line style of them, so we haven't needed to use detail lines to draw these outside lines. So I'm going to do the same thing for this ground floor plan. We're going to use the line work tool, and we're just going to select these outside lines. And you can see it's changing the style of those lines. So we'll leave it at just those ones, and then we can turn off this underlay. And you're going to see we can then choose that floor above, or that balcony above, and we've got a dash line to represent it. Now on this level 2 floor plan, we haven't added any of the door or window tags, and we could go to the annotate tab and then tag by category to tag them all, or what we can do is press tag all not tagged. If we press this, you'll see what happens. What we can do is select all of the door tags and window tags, and we're going to make sure that we're not using the custom tags that we made before. So I'm going to use the window tag that Revit gives us, and the same as the door tag, I'll make sure to choose that one that was already in the project, not the custom one. When we apply this, you'll see that it will add door and window tags to all of the doors and windows in the project or in the view. Now I'm going to click OK. Now what you're going to see is that all of the door tags have been placed where they should, which is good. But what you'll also see is that the window tags are all over the place, which isn't good. So as you can see, window 25, the tag for that is down there. When if we look at the mark of this window, this is window 25. So these two window tags have been thrown a little bit too far off. So I think that looks pretty good. However, we wouldn't really need to show any of these walls underneath, which is actually the walls coming up from level 1. What I mean by that is if we go to the 3D view, you'll see that that's just these walls that are being cut. So what we can possibly do is bring the cut or the view range up. So if we go to that level 2 floor plan and we have a look, we'll select that floor plan and change the view range. Now the reason why we can't change the view range at the moment is because we've got a view template set up on it. So what I'm going to do is use the temporary view properties. If we enable this, it can override the settings that are in that view template, and we can now change that view range. So I'm just going to make this, let's say 1800, and we'll see what that does to this view. You can see we're now seeing that roof up above. If we make this 2100, it's still not really giving us what we want. So I'm going to cancel that and then disable those temporary view options, and it will bring it back to normal. What I sort of want to do is just kind of gray these walls out because they are actually there, but they're not really necessary for us to show in this view. So what I'm going to do is just select those walls, and what I'm going to do is highlight as many as I can here, and then I'm going to use that filter tool again to filter the selection, check none, and select walls. Now what we can do is override these graphics. So I'm just going to unhighlight that one there. What I'm going to do is right click it and go override graphics and view element. And what we can do is put a half tone on these elements. And you can see they are now grayed out. And you don't always want to use the override graphics in view. You don't really want to use this tool too often because it's only a view-based change, and if something changes down the track and you want to edit these walls, you might forget that you've got these overrides on it. Whereas if you leave all of your overrides to your view template and your view settings, then it can help avoid making mistakes in the long run. But because these are the only types of the walls, we can't really do that. For now, that's just the simplest way to do things, but I'm going to show you another method of doing this using filters, which is going to get a little bit more complicated, but it's going to be extremely helpful, especially when we get into detailing towards the end of this course. But for now, I think the floor plans look great. We can probably leave them at that. Now remember, the level 1 floor plan we're not going to be touching because we've got that stuff on the ground floor plan. So what I can actually do is just delete this sheet, and then all we'd have to do on the ground floor plan is make sure we're showing that this area here is in fact lower than this area up here. And to do so, we're going to need some spot elevations. So what I'm going to do is go to the Annotate tab, and then under here in the Dimension section, you're going to see Spot Elevation. Now what we can do is click on this, and then we can hover over any area in the model. And it's going to give us a value of what that floor level is. You can see that as we go up the stairs, it's going to give us the floor level of each of these stairs. So we can see that they're 175 millimeters apart. And then coming down here, you're going to see that this entrance has a floor level of 0. This master bedroom has a floor level of 0. The walk-in robe has a 0. And then up here in the ensuite, it steps up to 360. And up here, the stairs, we go up, it's 1400, and so forth. So we need to show those things in the floor plan to represent them being at different floor levels. So I'm just going to place this in the master bedroom, and I usually like to place these underneath the room tags. And we don't need the leader or the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is just place that right here. And you have to choose a direction for that. I'm just going to put it on this side. In fact, we might even edit this family, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So that's already got the finished floor level there. It's the spot elevation of that floor, but it's not telling us that this number here is a finished floor level. All it's saying is that it's got this weird icon and then the number 0. If a client or a builder looks at this, they might have no idea what this is. So we're going to have to create a custom spot elevation. So to do so, you'd think what you'd do is click on this elevation marker and then come up to the top here and click on Edit Family. But unlike our furniture or something like that, where we've got that Edit Family button, we actually don't have that button here for this elevation marker. Likewise, if we click on our tags, what we could do before is edit that family and it would take us to that family. But the spot elevations, and the same as our other elevation markers and our grid lines and our section markers and all of these things that are markers, you're not going to be able to just edit the family. We need to actually get into these system families to edit them. So how do we go about doing that? If we scroll down to where we've got families in the project browser, we can open this up and you'll see all of our different families. But most importantly, we've got annotation symbols here at the top. So I'm going to bring that out, and you're going to start to see all of our different annotation symbols that are inside the project. Now this also includes our title blocks, and if we scroll down, we'll see our sheet template here that we created earlier. So we can actually right click this family here in the project browser and then click edit, and it will bring it up in our family editor. But if I close out of that, we don't want to save those changes. We want to edit the spot elevation, which is this. Let's have a look at it. Target field elevation marker. So I'm going to guess that's this one here. I'm going to right click that and click on edit. Now we can edit this marker. So in this family, all you're going to see are 2 filled regions. There's no text and there's no line. It's just 2 filled regions. So what can we do with this? Let's actually just go back to our ground floor plan for a moment. If we select this elevation marker, you'll notice that we've got a number of different options inside of this family. If we wanted to, we could make this a beam elevation, whatever that may be. We can make this a crosshair, which is a relative level, and we could make this the vertical type of family. But for us, we're just going to keep this as target and project. And what you're going to see to the side under the properties is a custom parameter that is embedded within this family, and that is the text group. And you would have learned about this if you looked at the lessons before. What we can do is add a prefix or a suffix to the value shown here. So the value is the spot elevation of the finished floor level. So we can actually add a prefix of it that says FFL to say finished floor level. That's what that stands for. So if I apply that, you'll see that now shows up as FFL. So the value there, which is 0, is going to show up, and so is the FFL. But it's just this icon that I don't really like. Instead, I think what we want is for this FFL text just to be boxed up. If we edit the type of this family, there's a few different settings that we can change. We can change the size of the text, and what we want to actually do is make sure that the background is set for transparent. I don't really like that text background being opaque, so I'm just going to apply that, and you'll see that's changed that. You can see under symbol that we've got this spot elevation with the target field, and if we check the drop down menu, we've also got these other elevations inside of this family. I'm just going to make this none, and you'll see that that gets rid of that stupid looking symbol. I also want to add a border to this, similarly to what we've got above it with the meter squareage, and you'll notice that there is no text border option for this system family. And being that we can't actually edit the system family, there's not really a workaround for that at the moment. Not that I know of at the moment anyways, but we're going to continue looking through these options. We also want this to show 2 decimal places like the meters above, or the meterage above. So we can change this under units format and change the format to not use the project settings and to round up to 2 decimal places. Let's click OK and apply that. Now we've got FFL 0.00. I'm also going to change this to meters so that it matches the meter squareage above. And that won't show much here, but when we go into the 1400 mils or whatever, it will show us 1.4 meters instead of 1400 mils. The text size, I also want to match that square meterage as well. So I'm just going to change the text size to a 3 mil text size. And there we go. I'll click OK, and I think that looks pretty good. So now what we need to do is place this same system family on some of these other places as well. So I'll use the spot elevation or press EL to bring that up. And you can see that we can place this now under a few different places. Now what the issue is that that prefix that we put on here is instance based and not type based. So what we might have to do is instead then place that prefix before each and every one of these elevation markers. Now I usually want to place these floor levels around where there's a floor level change. So having this in the master bedroom and then this say in the study doesn't really look that good because people are going to wonder what's the floor level between these two things. So what I might do is place a floor level symbol here and then another one down by the entrance. And what I can actually do is go to the copy command and just copy this over to the other side. And you're going to see then it keeps that instance based parameter, that prefix, which is great. And I'll put this underneath that entrance room tag, and then I'll just copy this one more time outside where this laundry door is, and you can see that that's the same distance between those two. I might even place another one then down here where this step is, and then where this step is if we wanted to, and then where this step is, and maybe another one here. Now that doesn't lie on its reference, so that's fine, there's no floor there. But what we're doing is just making it clear where the actual floor level changes are within the model and within the building. So then on the level 2 floor plan, we might just put in a couple more of those spot elevations here as well. You can see that this is showing as 2.8, which is actually relative to the ground floor rather than it being relative to this level. So you can see that's because we've got this set up as the target being the project. If we change this to the target being relative, you're going to see that that now shows as 0. And so we might need to make those same changes as before. Otherwise, what we can do is come back to our target project, duplicate this and call it relative, and we'll make this relative 2 so that we know that it's a different one, and we're going to delete that other one in a moment. So now we can change the elevation base to be relative. We'll apply that, and now it's going to show as being 0, and I'll just make that FFL again. So this can go under the dining spot, and I'll place another one out on the balcony. All right, so there we go with that. As you can see, we haven't needed to touch that elevation system family, but at least you know that's how you will edit these families if you need to, because as you can see, if we go to say this grid marker and we wanted this to be a little bit smaller rather than being a 6.5mm bubble, we can come up to the grid head in the annotation symbols under families, and we can edit this grid head from here. And I think that said no bubble, or no, it was with a bubble. So we can edit this one, and then it will bring up that grid head. And what we could do is make this smaller. if we wanted the tag to be say 2mm, and we'll click OK. And then if we load that into the project, you'll then see that label size change in this project. And now it's a bit smaller. So that's how you go about editing those grid heads. The same would also go for all of the elevation and section markers and any of these type of system families that you won't usually be able to edit by just editing the family. So now let's move on from the floor plans. We're going to have a look at some of the elevations. First things first, we want to change what this planting looks like. So I'm just going to press VV to bring up that visibility graphics. And we'll go find where planting is. What we want to do is make this pretty well almost fully transparent. We'll make it 90% transparent and we'll halftone what those trees look like. That way we can see through them. We know that they're still there. However, I still think that we don't need to see some of these trees, like these two we don't really need there. So I'm just going to hide them away with my shortcut for hiding. All of the section markers we don't want on the elevation views. So I'll go to the annotation categories and find where sections are and just hide away those sections. And again, we'll make all of these changes here in the elevations and then we'll create a view template and apply it to all of the other views. Now things like the topography being cut through, you're not going to usually see that in a section. You usually see the topography as just a thick black line. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to double click V again and find where topography is. Now for the cut patterns, we're going to override this and make it a solid pattern. And we'll change the color to maybe a light gray. We'll see what that looks like. If we apply that, you'll see that it's no longer showing that cut pattern, which is good. You only usually see that in section. We can also make that cut line for the topography a lot thicker. If I come to where it says cut lines, I'll go to override and we'll make this, let's say, a thicker weight. And if we make this 5, you can see that that should thicken up that line. In fact, we might need to go a little bit thicker than that. Let's just go for a 10, just to see what it looks like. There we go. You can see that's making a change. I think it might have already been 5. I'm not going to quite keep that as 10. We might make it a 7, just to make it a bit thicker than everything else. We'll click OK. We'll zoom in just to make sure. That looks good. We're going to bring in all of these grid markers. And what we can do is, rather than having them run through the entire building, because it can kind of look a bit off-putting, we can just bring them up and show them indicatively above the elevation like that. And I might bring them in just a little bit more like that. What I might do is just bring these levels in and then these ones as well will bring in. So this is usually all it consists of. And what we can do is bring these to this point as well rather than running them all the way through. And that just keeps the actual elevation tidy. Or if we wanted to, we could run it all the way through to the other end. That can also work as well. Now already that's made it look so much better compared to what it looked like before. So what I'm going to do is turn this into a view template. So by selecting that view and going to the view tab, we can go to view templates, create template from current view. And we'll call this KS or whatever your initials are, external elevation. Hit OK. And we could just apply that to this template, or we can apply this template to that view. And now we're just going to select the other elevations and change the view template of them. So I can change this to the KS external elevation, apply that, and instantly it just cleans it up. I'm just going to then tidy up some of these levels, make sure that they all line up nicely. And then the grids we can also bring up. So you can see we've now got a sheet with the two elevations, the east and west elevations on them, and it looks bloody good with our nice title block there. If I go to my north and south elevations, this looks pretty damn wild. So what I'm going to do is clean these up by applying that view template to them. I just selected them both and now we're going to apply that view template. And you can see some of the trees, because they're transparent, you're going to see all of this wacky kind of line work. So for these trees, I don't think I need to see them in this view. So what I'm actually going to do is just hide away some of these trees that aren't coming through properly. So I'm just going to hide them away in that view. Now, as you can see, we've got far too many levels for this view. I'm just going to hide away most of these as well. All we need to see are the finished floor levels. So everything else we can just hide away. We don't want to change the 3D extents. We just want to change the 2D extents. So I'll click on that 3D button and then bring this out in line with the other ones and do the same for this side as well. Now, things like these reference planes, they're not going to print out when we plot this out using the printer at the top there. So we can just leave them as is, they're not going to affect our prints. Now I showed you earlier how we can use keynotes to tag some of these elements, and we could add door and window tags to all of these if we wanted to. In fact, it wouldn't take very long. What we could do is just go to the annotate tab and then tag all, and use that same method we used earlier to tag the doors and windows with the correct tags and apply that. Very easily we can do so. Now some of the tags are going to show up even though we can't see those windows, so let's just delete those tags. That tag there is pretty useless. This tag there is useless. There we go, that looks good. We've got tags on all of them. In the next and final lesson, we'll be learning all about details in Revit and how to create intelligent details that read the model. If you'd like to get access to all of the course files, materials, and resources, as well as 20 hours of ad-free content, you can feel free to check out the full course on my website. I'll see you there.